Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, or just good day. You know what I mean? G'day. There you go. Australian. My name is Damien, the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad, host of the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. Look for it at the bottom of the screen, deets and all that kind of stuff. And this is part 11 of An Atheist Reads The People of the Abyss by Jack London. Hit the music, Fergie.
So far from lies and hypocrisy, returns to energy, and silence becomes brave. Don't ask me the reason why. Just say I only dream in black and white. Future's nothingness, but I can choose another end. Opening my eyes, and you beginning in my life. Without emptiness to feel, I am sure of myself. No mercy until the end.
Good day to you. This is indeed part 11 of An Atheist Reads The People of the Abyss by Jack London. The video that is playing is Driving Melbourne City from Roaming and Watching. So even if you don't like the sound of my voice, at least check out the view of my hometown. So yes. Anyway, this is part 11 of An Atheist, the Atheist being me, reading The People of the Abyss by Jack London. In the previous reading of this, I had one of my closest friends, Jax, reading with me and making comment, and it was quite interesting having an Australian and an American comment on the history and the comparative cultures between mine and hers, and the British culture that this book represents. They're now at Flinders Street. Cool, interesting. So yeah, and history is a very fascinating thing. So look, if you like it, you like it. If not, we should learn more history, because I think that there's a saying that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But yeah, so anyway, this is looks like a very early morning drive. It's yes, nice sunrise there. Yes, considering I've got to be at work at 7 in the morning for my job, I've seen the sunrise plenty of times. So anyway, I'm going to start the book. Chapter 12. This is titled Coronation Day. 3, 2, 1. O thou that sea will sever from lands unwalled by seas, wilt thou endure forever, O Milton's England, these? Though that was his republic, wilt thou clasp their knees? These royalties rust-eaten, these worm-corroded lies, that keep thy head storm-beaten, and sun-like strength of eyes, from the open air in heaven of intercepted skies. Swinburne. Vivat Rex Eduardus. They crowned a king this day, and there has been great rejoicing and elaborate tomfoolery, and I am perplexed and saddened. I never saw anything to compare with the pageant, except Yankee circuses and Alhambra ballets. Nor did I ever see anything so hopeless and tragic. To have enjoyed the coronation procession, I should have come straight from America to the Hotel Cecil, and straight from the Hotel Cecil to a 5-guinea seat among the washed. My mistake was in coming from the unwashed of the East End. There were not many who came from that quarter. The East End, as a whole, remained in the East End and got drunk. The Socialists, the Democrats, and Republicans went off to the country for a breath of fresh air, quite unaffected by the fact that 400 millions of people were taking to themselves a crowned and anointed ruler. 6,500 prelates, priests, statesmen, princes, and warriors beheld the crowning and anointing, and the rest of us the pageant as it passed. I saw it at Trafalgar Square, the most splendid sight in Europe, and the very innermost heart of the empire. There were many thousands of us, all checked and held in order by a superb display of armed power. The line of march was double-walled with soldiers. The base of the Nelson column was triple fringed with blue jackets. Eastward, at the entrance to the square, stood with the Royal Marine Artillery. In the triangle of Pall Mall and Cockspur Street, the statue of George III was buttressed on either side by the Lancers and Hussars. To the west were the redcoats of the Royal Marines, and from the Union Club to the embouchure of Whitehall swept the glittering massive curve of the First Life Guards. Gigantic men, mounted on gigantic chargers, steel breastplated, steel helmeted, steel caparisoned, and a great war sword of steel ready to the hand of the powers that be. And further, throughout the crowd, were flung long lines of the Metropolitan Constabulary, while in the rear were the reserves, tall, well-fed men with weapons to wield and muscles to wield them in case of need. And as it was thus at Trafalgar Square, so was it along the whole line of march. Force, overpowering force, myriads of men, splendid men, the pick of the people, whose sole function in life is blindly to obey, and blindly to kill, and destroy, and stamp out life, and that they should be well fed, well clothed, and well armed, and have ships to hurl them to the ends of the earth, the East End of London, and the East End of all England, toils, and rots, and dies. There is a Chinese proverb that if one man lives in laziness, another will die of hunger. And Montesquieu has said, the fact that many men are occupied in making clothes for one individual is the cause of there being many people without clothes. So one explains the other. We cannot understand the starved and runty toiler of the East End living with his family in a one-room den and letting out the floor space for lodgings to other starved and runty toilers, till we look at the strapping life guardsmen of the West End and come to know that the one must feed and clothe and groom the other. Alright, so this whole book is essentially, I won't say a rant, but it's certainly an expose of the, what do you call it, the vast inequality. This is a Flinders Lane. Let's look at the screen now. The vast inequality between, the haves and the have-nots. And what he's trying to say here. So the scene is that this is the crowning of King Edward. Which Edward was it? I'm going to see if I can find which Edward it was. So King Edward... I don't know which King Edward was it? Let's see what the When did he become... Oh, okay, it doesn't say when he became... He was born in 1894. Okay, he was preceded by George V. And George V was... he would have been Edward VI. Okay, just given the timeline of this... Yes, given the timeline of the book, so this would have been... Sorry, this would have been Edward VII. Yes, Edward VII, who was preceded by Victoria and succeeded by George V. It's just so interesting that for all of my lifetime, I've only known one queen, and that is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. But here they were changing kings every 5-10 years. It's quite a... So Edward VII, the oldest son of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, nicknamed Bertie. There you go. So yeah, it is interesting. Interesting. So King Edward VII, he's getting coronated, and the coronation is full of big strapping guys with big strapping weapons, and they're well fed and they're well armed and they're ready to kill, kind of thing. And yeah, it's and then so with that you've then got all these other people starving and looking for work and looking for food. But the military machine, especially that protecting the king, is well fed and well ready to go. So, yeah, it is just very interesting that this inequality. So the whole book is about the inequality of Victorian / Edwardian era England, and yeah. So and the East End. So the East End is where all the poor people shoved and shunted and don't have much hope. And it's actually quite so if you go through the previous 10 readings, you'll know exactly what I mean. So do that up. So yeah. Anyway, I will pause the music and I'll get on to the rest of the book. 3, 2, 1. Sorry. Okay. And while in Westminster Abbey, the people were taking unto themselves a king, jammed between the lifeguards and constabulary of Trafalgar Square, was dwelling upon the time when the people of Israel first took unto themselves a king. You all know how it runs. The elders came to the prophet Samuel and said, "Make us a king to judge us, like all the nations." And the Lord said unto Samuel, "Now therefore hearken unto their voice. Howbeit thou shalt show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them." And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king, and he said, "This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons, and appoint them unto him, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and they shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint them unto him for captains of thousands, and captains of 50s, and he will set some to plough his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war, and the instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. And he will take your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. Then he will take 1/10 of your seed, and of your vineyards, and give to his officers, and to his servants. And he will take your manservants, and your maidservants, and your goodliest young men, and your asses, and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and ye shall be his servants. And ye shall call that in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not answer you in that day. all of which came to pass in that ancient day. And they did cry out to Samuel, saying, Pray for thy servants unto the Lord thy God, that we die not. For we have added unto all our sins this evil to ask us a king. And after Saul, David, and Solomon came Rehoboam, who answered the people roughly, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. And in these latter days, 500 hereditary peers own 1/5 of England, and they and the officers and servants under the king, and those who go to compose the powers that be, yearly spend in wasteful luxury $1,850,000,000, or £370 million, which is 32% of the total wealth produced by all the toilers of the country. At the Abbey, clad in wonderful golden raiment, amid fanfare of trumpets and throbbing of music, surrounded by a brilliant throng of masters, lords and rulers, the king was being invested with the insignia of his sovereignty. The spurs were placed to his heels by the Lord Great Chamberlain, and a sword of state, in purple scabbard, was presented him by the Archbishop of Canterbury, with these words, Receive this kingly sword brought now from the altar of God, and delivered to you by the hands of the bishops and servants of God, though unworthy. Whereupon, being girded, he gave heed to the Archbishop's exhortation. With this sword do justice, stop the growth of iniquity, protect the holy church of God, help and defend widows and orphans, restore the things that are gone to decay, maintain the things that are restored, punish and reform what is amiss, and confirm what is in good order. Alright, I'm gonna... Now that is interesting. The idea of church and state being so intertwined that the kingship is literally bestowed by a priest with a sword, a bloody sword, and it is actually quite interesting because anyone knows anything about America, really weird. Like in America, there is a doctrine of church-state separation, but oh hello, I've got a visitor. Do you want to say something, visitor? Sorry about that, my son needed, some affection. Yeah, so £370 million, nice. That's not something to be sneezed at. So I actually do like the monarchy right now. Anyway, the problem is the monarchy right now hasn't always been the monarchy, and so yeah, it's. And so back then, they kind of they lauded power. It's quite interesting. Whereas now the king is very hands off, or the monarch is very hands off, and sorry, still a bit tired. But yeah, that is something just to think about. But yeah, so America, church-state separation, but the influence of the church, and especially right-wing, well, I was going to say right-wing, but fundamentalist evangelicalism. It's just interesting that, like, I'll agree, America is essentially a Christian country, though very, very complex and very, I would say unchristian, but that's me. But yeah, Circular Talk is a big day today. Let me just see. All right, cool. Oh, geez, this is a big chapter. All right, cool. That's fine. This will have to be a two-parter. Because of course I don't prepare. What kind of dirty word is preparation? Anyway, let me hit I'll go back to the book. 3, 2, 1. But hark, there is cheering down Whitehall. The crowd sways. The double walls of soldiers come to attention. And into view swing the King's watermen, in fantastic medieval garbs of red, for all the world like the van of a circus parade. Then a royal carriage, filled with ladies and gentlemen of the household, with powdered footmen and coachmen most gorgeously arrayed. More carriages, lords and chamberlains, viscounts, mistresses of the robes, lackeys all. Then the warriors, a kingly escort, generals bronzed and worn, from the ends of the earth come up to London town. Volunteer officers, officers of the militia and regular forces, Spence and Plumer, Broadwood and Cooper, who relieved O'Keefe, Matthias of Dargai, Dixon of Lackfontaine, General Gately and Admiral Seymour of China, Kitchener of Khartoum, Lord Roberts of India, and all the world, the fighting men of England, masters of destruction, engineers of death. Another race of men from those of the shops and slums, a totally different race of men. But here they come, in all the pomp and certitude of power, and still they come, these men of steel, these warlords and world harnessers, pell-mell, peers and commoners, princes and maharajas, equerries to the king and yeomen of the guard. And here the colonials, lithe and hardy men, and here all the breeds of all the world soldiers from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, from Bermuda, Borneo, Fiji and the Gold Coast, from Rhodesia, Cape Colony, Natal, Sierra Leone and Gambia, Nigeria and Uganda, from Ceylon, Cyprus, Hong Kong, Jamaica and Wei Hai Wei, from Lagos, Malta, St. Lucia, Singapore, Trinidad. And here the conquered men of Ind, swarthy horsemen and sword wielders, fiercely barbaric, blazing in crimson and scarlet, Sikhs, Rajputs, Burmese, province by province and caste by caste. And now the horse guards, a glimpse of beautiful cream ponies and a golden panoply, a hurricane of cheers, the crashing of bands. The King! The King! God save the King! Everybody has gone mad. The contagion is sweeping me off my feet. I, too, want to shout, The King! God save the King! Ragged men about me, tears in their eyes, are tossing up their hats and crying ecstatically, Bless him! Bless him! Bless him! See, there he is, in that wondrous golden coach, the great crown flashing on his head, the woman in white beside him, likewise crowned. And I check myself with a rush, striving to convince myself that it is all real and rational, and not some glimpse of fairyland. This I cannot succeed in doing, and it is better so. I much prefer to believe that all this pomp and vanity and show and mumbo-jumbo foolery has come from fairyland than to believe it the performance of sane and sensible people who have mastered matter and solved the secrets of the stars. Princes and princelings, dukes, duchesses, and all manner of coronated folk of the royal train are flashing past. More warriors and lackeys, and conquered peoples, and the pageant is over. I drift with the crowd out of the square into a tangle of narrow streets, where the public houses are aroar with drunkenness. Men, women, and children mixed together in colossal debauch. And on every side is rising the favourite song of the coronation. Oh, on Coronation Day, on Coronation Day, we'll have a spree, a jubilee, and shout hip hip hooray! For we'll all be merry, drinking whiskey, wine and sherry. We'll all be merry on Coronation Day. The rain is pouring down. Up the street comes troops of the auxiliaries, black Africans and yellow Asiatics, beturbaned and bephased, and coolly swinging along with machine guns and mountain batteries on their heads, and the bare feet of all, in quick rhythm, going slish, slish, slish through the pavement mud. The public houses empty by magic, and the swarthy allegiants are cheered by their British brothers, who return at once to the corrals. And how'd you like the procession, mate? I asked an old man on a bench in Green Park. How'd I like it? A blooming good shiny, says I to myself. For a sleep, coppers away. So I turned in the corner there, along 50 others, but I couldn't sleep, lying there and thinking how I worked all the years of my life, and now I had no place to rest my head, and the music come to me, and the cheers and cannon, so I got almost an anarchist and wanted to blow out the brains of the Lord Chamberlain. Why the Lord Chamberlain I could not precisely see, nor could he, but that was the way he felt, and he conclusively said, and there was no more discussion. As night drew on, and the city became a blaze of light, splashes of colour, green, amber, and ruby, caught the eye at every point, and ER, in great crystal letters and backed by flaming gas, was everywhere. The crowds in the street increased by hundreds of thousands, and though the police sternly put down mafficking, drunkenness, and rough play abounded, the tired workers seemed to have gone mad with the relaxation and excitement, and they surged and danced down the streets, men and women, old and young, with linked arms and in long rows singing, I may be crazy, but I love you, Dolly Gray, and the honeysuckle and the bee. The last rendered something like this. You're all the any seckle, I am the bee. I'd like to sip the enemy from those red lips you see. I sat on a bench on the Thames embankment, looking across the illuminated water. It was approaching midnight, and before me poured the better class of merrymakers, shunning the more riotous streets and returning home. On the bench beside me sat two ragged creatures, a man and a woman, nodding and dozing. The woman sat with her arms clasped across the breast, holding tightly, her body in constant play, now dropping forward till it seemed its balance would be overcome, and she would fall to the pavement, now inclining to the left, sideways, till her head rested on the man's shoulder, and now to the right, stretched and strained, till the pain of it awoke her, and she sat bolt upright, whereupon the dropping forward would begin again, and go through its cycle till she was aroused by the strain and stretch. Alright, 2 seconds, hit some music. Okay, so this is quite interesting. So basically, the So what the guy was saying about trying to get the rest of the coppers away. So in the previous chapter, what me and Jax had discussed, what we found was that it was very hard for these people on the street to get rest because they were basically being chased away by policemen. So policemen would come, move them along. 10 minutes later, police would come, move them along, and all that. And I think we actually discussed the idea of defensive architecture. And so here, so the guy's going, look, we're trying to get a sleep now. The policemen are away, but then all the music and the coronation, you really couldn't get rest. And then all these soldiers from the conquered lands, they said the Asiatics and the Indians and the Africans and all that. And it's just interesting that. Okay, let me kill this ad because great, that's what we need more. Yeah, and then just the general rowdiness and the general I suppose debauchery and the fact that kids were in pubs. That's actually an interesting thought there. But I suppose the big thing I pick up is no expense spared. If they can get all the people from all over the representatives from all over the world to celebrate the coronation of King Edward, then it's this is it is an interesting time. And look, this is one of the things about having a monarchy is that you will have to pay a lot for the monarchy. But just going back to that passage from Samuel that the author quoted. Now, I have a lot of trouble believing that was written before a king was instituted. That kind of reads as like what I would call a retroactive theologization. That it was written after the fact to make it look like it was written before the fact, and that's what they believed all along. But no, it just so happens that, hey, look, we're going to take you. Yeah, anyway, that's an aside. But yeah, it's cool. The music is still going good. And yeah, so this is actually now Little Burke Street heading into Chinatown. And yes, I've been here a few times as well. It is interesting. It looks like he's in a van, just going from the ride height, where the camera is and all that. Either the camera's on top of the car, or he's got the camera in a car, and the car happens to be a van. So yeah, let's see how long I've been reading for. Okay, 30 minutes. Okay, look, I might stop here then. Let me put a... Oh, jeez Louise. Okay, highlight. And let me chuck a bookmark on here. Beautiful, there we go. So we're about halfway, roughly about halfway through chapter 12 of this book. And so the last paragraph was basically about, after all the merriment had died down, then, it looks like things had gone back to normal. You had two people who were homeless and sitting on a bench, and, the woman's trying to get some rest, and, because there's no good place to rest, she's trying to rest on the shoulder of the man. But then, she drifts asleep and she wakes up because of the strain on her back and her neck. Meaning, sure, the spent £370 million to coronate a king, but good one, guys. But anyway, my name is Damien, the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad, host of the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. Check out the deets below. If you want to find it, you'll know where to find it. But otherwise, until next time, look after yourselves, stay safe, hit the music.
I am